Welcome to the Everyday Educator podcast, where we explore what it means to learn alongside our family every day. We want to encourage one another as we ponder the delights and challenges that make homeschooling the adventure of a lifetime. Whether you are new to this homeschooling adventure or deep into the daily delight of learning together, I'm glad you found us. But don't forget, although this online community is awesome, you'll find even closer support in a local CC community. So go to classicalconversations.com and find a community near you today. Well, I am Lisa Bailey. I'm your host today, and I'm super excited to talk to you and to talk to our guest about homeschooling in the UK. And my guest today is Janine Bell. Janine serves as the country coordinator for the UK. And Janine, I'm tickled to talk to you today.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I think that one of the things that I have noticed in classical conversations is that community is very important to all of us, that we really love learning together. We love hooking arms together and supporting one another in academics, but also in living through the life stages of our children, living through different aspects of family life. And so I've always thought that it's really wonderful that the Lord called me to homeschool and that He showed me the community that my classical conversations friends have become. And I have been very inspired and very blessed to know that these same kinds of communities are being built all around the world. We pray for you guys in the UK on a regular basis. My team at Classical Conversations prays for families all across the world, just like yours. And so I feel like everybody needs to know what's going on in all the different places that the Lord has planted a CC community and in all the different places as He is knitting our hearts together. So thank you for taking some time to talk to me today, Janine. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I feel the same. I can't think of another curriculum or another way to live our lives where we get to link arms, like you said, with families all around the world. To think that classical conversations communities are in over 60 countries is mind-boggling.
Okay, I will tell you this. I joined Classical Conversations in 2004. So long ago, there were so few communities in 2004. And so now, when I hear you say we're in 60 countries around the world, my jaw wants to drop. I could never have imagined linking arms with parents all across the world. And so this is so exciting to me, Janine, that there are homeschoolers in your country and in South Africa and all throughout South America and in Asia that are our brothers and sisters in the Lord and now are our brothers and sisters as we educate our children.
Agreed. And I love in scripture how it says it's God who provides the increase, because the reality is that every parent who started just started thinking, how am I going to do this? What is this? How
Yes.
do I lead a community? What is tutoring? What is homeschooling? What on earth am I doing? And
Yes.
so to think
Yes.
that that's how it began. And when we first heard of Classical Conversations, I'd just begun home education, and you were celebrating being in all 50 states. So I love the sort of harmony of that, because that was in 2010. And then in 2020, which is when this role, I took on this role in England, of course, that's when Classical Conversations was really huge. It was already in 50 countries.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
astonishing.
It is amazing to see what God does with the little seed that he planted in each of us and what he will grow. Well, I want you to share. You started to share a little bit about your CC journey. I want you to tell your CC story. Tell us about your family, about your homeschooling journey, and about whatever you want to share about your connection to CC now.
Well, thank you. Maybe I should introduce my family. My husband
Yes.
we were at school together, but we weren't school sweethearts.
Yes. Yes.
But so by God, he used to say to me, he became a Christian at 16, and he used to say to me, you've got to figure out who Jesus is. So I love that it's my husband's feet who are precious to me.
Yes.
It's very,
Oh,
very
that's
good.
lovely. That's great.
So we became Christians sort of later in life. I was 25 when I became a Christian. We just got, well, actually just before we got married. So we got married 25 years ago. We've celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. We have 4 children.
Congratulations.
The oldest is in his final year at Durham University doing computer science. He was our
Wow.
first CC graduate in this country,
Oh, that is so cool.
which is
Wow.
very
That's
exciting.
a great label.
So that was a lovely thing to celebrate. And that, believe me, was step by step, inch by inch. The still
Yes.
small voice saying, keep going. I was more, husband, do you think we could go move to America where there are CC communities?
Somebody who can help me do this a little bit more
Yeah, and to give him
clearly.
friends and community.
Yes.
But what was lovely is actually he did have a community every single year. The Lord brought a family from America.
Oh,
So
wow.
he actually always had somebody to learn with. So this is the God that we serve. So
That's
we
so
have
great.
him at Durham. We have another son who's in his second year at the New Model Institute for Technical Engineering, which is a new
Wow.
university, and it's fantastic. It's like a continuation of Challenge, but for engineering. We
Oh,
just love
that's
it.
awesome.
And we
So
had no idea.
often, yeah,
We had
so
no idea
often
that it
the
was going to pop
STEM
up.
education is not classical in nature. So what a blessing.
Yeah, huge. And so to all the parents out there that are praying for their child, that they're just thinking, what are we going to do with you? And
Yes.
why did God like make this a
Why did he
family?
put you in our family? We don't know how to help you.
We don't know what we're doing. I
Yes.
mean, he's always been a joy, always, but we've just never known which path it would be for him.
Right.
And lo and behold, it was a friend in community who found the university for him.
Oh, that's
And that's
awesome.
another exciting story for why we need
Absolutely.
community.
Yep.
So, and so that's our second son. So they're both in their early 20s. Then we have another amazing God story for our third child, who's our daughter, our only daughter, and she just turned 19. And on next Wednesday, she's going to start at the brand new classical Christian liberal arts university called Selden College, which is opening its doors to 4 students for the first time this year. And again,
Wow.
we
And
had no idea that would be happening.
your daughter's in on the ground floor. That's super exciting.
Well, it really is. And just to put that in context, because I know that historically we have got this rich Christian heritage. We
Yes.
actually don't have a single university in England or in the British Isles that calls itself a Christian university
Wow.
now.
Isn't
So
that so startling because we know the rich Christian tradition that the UK, the British Isles have enjoyed. And so for that to be true now, it's so it is a very humbling thought that the Lord is using us, is perhaps using your family, Janine, to regenerate that Christian classical tradition, to reawaken it. What a blessing that you are in such a time.
it is mind-boggling, and just shows what a faithful God we have. I
Yes.
remember as well back in 2020 writing a poem to Classical Conversations in the States to report on something, because it feels a bit like the history of America. There were some people from Europe, of course, coming over, and we know
Of
that
course.
it was a Christian nation. At its core, your nation
Mhm.
has it is a lover of the Lord, and all it was that saying about you can't teach a old dog new tricks, because I
Yes.
thought that in a way what's happened is we were the old dog and you were the
Uh-huh.
new dog starting your new country.
Yes.
But what's
Yes.
actually happened is the new dog is teaching the old dog
Mhm.
the tricks from back
That's
in the
beautiful. What a
beginning.
great picture. What a great picture. The Lord's allowed us to lead out, at least in bringing classical Christian home education back to the forefront of families, of parent choices in the UK.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the other, I mean, just to finish off my family, I don't want to forget little Joe, who's 12 and he's just starting Challenge A.
Oh.
Um, but the other thing that I think is I find exciting is I think the new tricks that this old dog needs to learn is bigger than a classical Christian education, how the
Mm,
British ears hear. When we hear education, we think school
of
straight away.
course. Yes. Yes.
Um, and what classical conversations does for us is helps us to rebuild so much more than
Mm,
education, because
mm.
it's rebuilding community as well. And because the whole of the education and the structure of community is teaching us how to live, how to think Christianly and how to
Mm.
live Christianly, down to building relationships. Because in England, we're
Yes.
known for our stiff upper lip, and we
Yes,
don't.
I've heard that.
I think that it's we've actually become very coy about having frank conversations, and we're you have to have a conversation with somebody in
Yes.
order to go deeper and to get to know them better.
Yes, you're right.
And you also have to have a conversation if there's something that's not quite right. And actually, you could probably, I'm sure there are plenty of comedy sketches out there for the great lengths that we'll go to in this country not to have the conversation.
Yes.
Um, so I did worry in the early days that we would just never grow, because I thought that these British people are just not going to go for for that for
They
the
don't. So I guess what I hear you saying, Janine, is that culturally you worried about classical Christian home education because culturally the British people don't share their private thoughts and their private needs. And we don't talk about that kind of thing with people, any people, especially people outside of our family. And I think you hit the nail on the head because classical Christian education is all about conversation. It's about sharing ideas and thoughts. And especially, it's about sharing ideas that bounce against each other. And the whole idea of a classical education is that we want to wrestle hard for the truth that we find. We want to consider all the ideas and hold them up to a standard of truth. And the idea either fits that standard of truth or it doesn't. But we have to wrestle with the ideas, and that takes give and take. And that's best done, I think, in community where everybody, you know, it, we began our homeschool journey before I found out about classical conversations. And it was just our kids at home with me and with my husband. And that was okay when they were little. But I remember thinking when they get older and I want them to learn to debate, it's going to be kind of a hollow exercise if they don't have anybody to push back against except their parents. And they already know what we think, and we already think a lot of the same things. And how will they wrestle with difference if we can't find some more people to talk to? And so I can see what you're saying, that you wondered how it would grow in the UK because talking to people about ideas was not a big thing for you guys.
Yeah. And I think God's been very kind, because actually that we are multicultural in our communities. We have got people with
It's awesome.
heritage from other countries,
Yeah.
and we have South Africans, we have different nationalities. We do have some Americans that come and visit for a time and join
Mhm.
with us.
Mhm.
So that has helped, I think, and I've definitely had conversations, because South Africans can be quite to the point. They don't
Right.
beat around the bush. So
Okay.
I think that's
No
been really
embellishment, no
helpful.
working up to the hard conversation, huh?
But I think they've definitely scratched their heads sometimes with us. Um, anyway, we're making good progress. We
I
are.
Well, I wanted to know, that's one of the things I think my listeners would be interested in. What's the story of homeschooling in your country? The home education. You told me that people in the UK don't say homeschooling because that schooling gives the connotation that we don't want. The home education movement, how old is it? Well, I mean, we all know people used to be home educated in Britain for centuries. But the contemporary home education movement in the UK, when did it start and how did it get started?
That is a really good question, because, as you say, everyone used to home educate in our country,
Right.
and I did a little bit of research. Just so it sounds like it was only in the mid 1800s, late mid to late 1800s, that school became compulsory,
Okay.
and that was only to age 10. And I actually remember
Oh my word.
yeah, only to age 10. I remember my
10.
grandmother, so she was born in 1919, and she left school at 14, and she went to be a seamstress.
Wow.
Um, that was one of the things that drew me to the classical education, because in the reading and the research I was doing then, I the, the kinds of things that my grandma would have learned as she left school, I'd never covered.
You never
So
got to it.
no, you could see
Yeah.
that the education was better, and yet it
Right.
finished earlier.
Yes. Yes. And so
So
you think, what how has this gone missing from the education that we're offering our young people today?
when I think it's quite hard to convey to your nation from the conversations that I've had with people. I think um, I think my experience is typical of home education in England, which is
Mhm.
I'd never heard of it, ever. I didn't grow up knowing anybody who did it.
Right.
I, I thought it was illegal. And
Right. Right. Because or you would have heard about it. I mean,
yeah, yeah. And also, just because you know that people get into trouble, there's truancy. If you don't go to school,
right.
you're
You don't
truant.
go to school, something's wrong.
There's
Yeah.
consequences.
Yes.
Um, so again, it was a gift of God that when my husband and I were first married, we lived out of our country. We lived in another country. And it was
Oh,
only through living in Vancouver, BC, that we came across home education.
isn't
And
that interesting that God had you on that journey for a reason?
it really is so humbling, because also, you know, it talks in the Bible of we get there's something about the desires of our hearts
Yes.
when we're in that's a funny. I don't even like saying it, because it's of course God's purposes are much bigger than the desires of my hearts, but,
Right.
but
Right.
of my heart. But He's such a good God,
He's a loving father who wants to give you your desires.
good gifts, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been on a quest for a good education all my life. I used to walk
Oh,
past a grammar school. Those in England will know. There's this division. You go to a grammar school if you pass a certain exam in some parts of
right.
the country. In other parts of
Okay.
the country, you don't take the exam. There is no option to go to a grammar school.
Oh,
And where I lived, it was like that. But if you had the money, you could
got you.
attend. And that it just was never on our radar. It was just not something we did.
Right.
But I knew they did Latin in the grammar school, and it seemed like you probably got a good education, whatever that was, in the grammar
Right.
school. And
Right.
so it always felt, it appealed to me to have a good education. Um, but anyway, and on paper I did, because I
Yeah.
went through the system and I did a degree and I got a diploma in law, and so on paper I was educated, but I always knew what I
Uh,
didn't know.
right.
I knew there
I
was so much more that I didn't know than that I did know.
Yes, yes. You felt a lacking. There was something in you that knew there was more to know, and you wish you had had it or had a chance to know. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry, I've gone quite off track there with the history of education.
No, that's okay because so you knew even growing up, um, and you didn't know anybody. I did not know anybody in the States who was homeschooled. I had never heard of homeschooling until I was a college student in the early 80s. I was a college student, and the church I attended as a student, there was one family that was homeschooling, and I didn't really know what that was. I knew that I don't know for sure that it was illegal in North Carolina where I live now, but I knew that it was frowned upon and it was not openly proclaimed in the early 80s when I was a college student. Um, and I think that even when Lee Borton's began Classical Conversations in 1997, homeschooling was probably only a decade old in most pockets of the state. You know, there had been people homeschooling, but it didn't really start to become a movement probably until mid to late 80s. So, yeah, so you were saying that you had never even heard of anybody homeschooling, although there was a longing in your heart for a different kind of education than you saw being provided. When do you first remember hearing about home education?
Yeah, so it was when we were living in Vancouver, and so I knew, of course, it was legal over there. And then when I came back to England, um, I discovered that the Education Act in 1996 says that it's up to the parent of every child
Oh.
of compulsory school age to require him or her to have an efficient full-time education, e- essentially at school or otherwise.
Wow. So 1996 is when you discovered, well, that's when the act was passed that gave parents essentially the freedom to choose what kind of
Well, that's
education.
it. There could be. So that's the latest law on it. I don't actually know. I don't know. I should know the history of
Well,
that particular act,
that's okay. That's
but
okay.
I
I'm just
can't.
asking you about your experience, basically.
But it has it's definitely been legal. It's definitely been legal. It's just the thing that made me sad was, or makes me sad, and that I'd like to redress,
Mm,
is helping parents at that stage of considering the education for their children to know that it's an option. And I'm
yes.
particularly sad about it because I looked, because our second son was born in August, and the cutoff for the school, he was actually supposed to be born in September, which would have given him another year at home.
Mhm.
And the only options from all the research that I did, the only option that I could find was that I could keep him back for 1 year, but then he would join school in the same class that he just missed.
Oh, uh,
So he'd essentially go in as a complete stranger and the baby who'd been at home all year
yes.
while
Yes.
they'd all been at school.
Supposedly learning all these kinds of things that your son maybe had not been exposed to yet.
Yes,
That
exactly.
seems
So it,
crazy.
it just wasn't a good option. And so
Mm.
what I would absolutely love is if parents, local authorities would let parents know they have this option to home educate. That seems like quite I mean, nothing is too hard for God.
That's
But
right.
right now, at the moment, we have a bill going through Parliament which will actually remove not only homeschoolers' rights, freedoms, I should say, because we
Mm.
operate under a, a legislation of freedoms, not rights.
Mm-hmm.
So anything
Mm-hmm.
that's not prohibited, we can do. Um, the bill will allow local authorities to require certain things of parents, and if
Oh.
they deem that unsatisfactory, they would be able to make a school order. But it's not just parents who home educate, this is also parents of any child. The local authority would be able to say where that child goes to school. So it's actually
Mm.
quite a big change for parents. Um,
Yes.
but lots of parents don't seem to know about that bill and
Right.
how
There.
how far through the stages of the legislation it is. At the moment, it's sitting on a shelf, but it
Right.
keeps
But it
being
could
sort of
come
resurrected
back.
and coming through. And um, yeah, so that
Wow. And so I see you have a real burden for families to understand the freedoms that they have right now to home educate and how quickly that freedom could evaporate. Um, yeah. Wow. That is, we'll put that on the list because I was going to say, what can homeschoolers around the world be praying for you in the UK about? And that's definitely something that we should pray for you in.
oh, yes, please, thank you. And I think the other thing is that we Christians in England, in the British Isles, we've got more to learn from you on that score as
Mhm.
well. I think, so this is called Classical Conversations, and the mission is to know God and to make him known.
Yes.
And part of knowing God more has been my experience through this model of learning and being in community and learning that we're to love God with all of our heart, strength, soul, and mind, and love our
Yes.
neighbor as ourselves. And
Yes.
to love our neighbor as ourselves, we have to speak to them when they offend us. We have to pray for
Mm.
them when we're struggling with them. We have to
Mhm.
have conversations that are difficult. And then
Yes.
lo and behold, we gain a sister.
Right. Right. We gain.
Scripture's true after
Yes.
all. And
Yes.
but knowing God in his world, from the maths, the Latin, the music, the science, the English, the language,
Yes.
the more you know a person, or the more you know a thing, and the more you invest in knowing it, the easier it is to love.
Yeah.
And so that would be a part of the prayer that people consider this model of learning, is because it's so freeing, because
Oh,
knowing God
yeah.
more allows you to talk more freely about knowing him.
Hey everyone, we want to interrupt this show to tell you more about this semester's sponsor, Judson College. Judson College is an amazing fit for a CC student because they really do focus in on our three uniques: classical, Christian, and community. Listen to their mission statement. They say, equipping students to give their lives for the cause of Christ in the church, among the nations, and in every aspect of society. Let me tell you a little bit about what they mean when they say every aspect of society. I know sometimes we think of a Christian college and we think, okay, you're just teaching me to go into vocational ministry. Well, guess what? We spoke with a representative from Judson College, and he shared with us that it's more than just official ministry. They believe that every believer is equipped and needs to be equipped for ministry wherever their feet land. So, whether that means the marketplace or someone's church. Judson College has a wide variety of degrees for students to choose from, including 25 majors as well as 5 years bachelor's to master's programs. And each of these programs are taught by exceptional faculty who are experts in their field and passionate about investing in the lives of their students. They want their students to leave equipped theologically and professionally for whatever career God wants them to pursue. To find out more about what Judson College has to offer, visit judsoncollege.com/distinctives. And again, thank you to Judson College for sponsoring this semester of the Everyday Educator. Let's get back to the show.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It becomes so much a part of everything you do, what you study, what you learn, what you talk about with your friends, what you talk about in your home. It just it takes over your life. It takes over your mind and your heart. And so when it does flow, and it makes it easier. You know, one of the goals is that we help our children know God, know who he is and what he's done and how he works and how he moves. But also, we want our children to learn to make him known. So, how to talk winsomely about the things that the Lord has taught him through his world and through his word, and through the sharpening of one another in conversation. But also, one of the ways that we make him known is to become more like him and to love our neighbor well and to learn to honor our neighbor and to learn to listen to our neighbor, which is a skill that is sadly lacking over the entire world right now. I think we're very poor listeners in general. We are very quick to say all the things that we believe and that we deserve and that we want and that we support. And we're very slow to listen to somebody else's need or word. And I honestly think, Janine, that that will be the heritage, the legacy that we leave our classically educated children is the legacy of listening with a closed mouth and an open mind so that we can discern what the other person is saying and find the common ground first before we try to beat them into accepting our own idea. I think one of the things that I see is the biggest blessing of our challenge program is that it teaches students to listen to one another and to listen respectfully to other positions and to genuinely try to understand another point of view before holding all of the different viewpoints up to the truth of the scripture and the truth of the person of Jesus to find what they actually want to believe and invest their lives in.
Absolutely. And it's so true what you said earlier about wanting that conversation outside of your own family.
Yes.
And it is fascinating for student and parent in the challenge class, because in the UK, the parents, it's not a drop off in the UK, it's part of
Parents
the
stay.
yeah, because of
That's
the
awesome.
laws in the UK.
Okay.
We well, also it actually, of course, shores up the whole
It does.
model, because
Yeah.
the more invested the parent is and aware, then
Yeah.
they can help their child. So we work as teams, obviously, in community to do
Mm-hmm.
that. But it is a privilege to be in those classes, in the challenge classes. And so just hearing other families and the different things that they do and the different thoughts that
Yeah.
they have is such an education. And as you rightly said, you know, we do have, I think some of it is our two parents working,
Yeah.
digital life that we lead. You know, everything's getting faster, and the
Mm-hmm.
margins around life are getting squeezed and narrower
Smaller.
and
Yeah.
narrower. And so it's such a privilege to just take some time and listen to other people and
Mm-hmm.
learn together.
Mm-hmm. It's such a beautiful community. I feel like once families experience it and the richness of learning from one another, and it's not just learning academic truth from one another. I mean, you learn how to share thoughts, you learn how to have conversations, but you learn how to love people who aren't like you. You learn how to accept people who have maybe irritating or uncomfortable traits or maybe you're the one with an irritating trait. We learn, our students and families, they learn to show mercy, they learn to show grace, they learn to model forgiveness, they learn to live love in action and let it not just be something that they say, but something that they do. I think that community um, gives us such a deepening understanding of why God made us and what we're doing here on the earth, that I honestly believe, I think that people who join the communities stay because they find the answer to something their heart was searching for. But go ahead.
Oh no, I just love what you said there about the, because it is those big questions, isn't it? And I think we all even from an early age, I remember suddenly thinking, okay, so got my parents, and what would happen if something happened to them? And the
Yes.
thought then of, wow, oh, the world is very big, and
Yes. And I
we
would feel
know
very alone.
yeah, scripture tells us that God sets the solitary in families, and family is the place we all long to go back to. There's that
Yes.
Going Home for
Yes.
Christmas song. It's
Yes. Yes.
because it's a picture of our eternal home. We feel like that about home.
Mm, that's
Home is
great.
somewhere we long to be. But family at the same time can be a difficult place to be. You've got to
Yeah.
learn to live well together.
Yes.
Um, but that those two questions, this is the thing I think that was always the rub for me with an education, is how can we be on this beautiful planet and go to school or whatever education we have
Mm-hmm.
and not consider, who am I? How did I get here? What is
Why?
this leaf for? What is that plant for? What kind of bird is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is water? And what would I do? How would I find water if ever the taps stopped
Right.
supplying
Right.
it?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
really basic things about life and survival. And it seems strange that you go through a whole education into adulthood, and not only that, but you can't relate to babies or children because you've spent every year of your life with 30 people your own age.
Right.
Um, which you never get replicated in life
Ever
again.
again. Right. Never again will you be just with this one segment of society that's just like you. That actually is unnatural. Home education is way more natural than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And pulling the children out in that sense of you put them in this artificial environment, and essentially what happens, in life, people die, and where are they when grandparents die? They're not.
Mhm.
There's this whole tension in our society with life and death, and
Mm.
whether the children should or shouldn't be at the death of a loved one's
Right.
funeral. That
Right.
is a family event, and there's family
Yes.
mourning, and to have
Yes.
to sort of put all that in your backpack and go to school with it and not talk about
Right.
that and wrestle with it.
Yeah, that's a really great perspective. That's a really great way to think about it. That it sending our children off to school kind of compartmentalizes their learning life from the rest of their life, their family life, their wandering through the world with the curiosity life. It's so segmenting. Whereas classical home education is very integrating. So the family is together and the family is learning together. And what you learn about from your Bible study plays into what you learn about as you read history and as you study Latin and as you explore science and as you learn mathematics. It's all in there together, and you're doing it within the context of your family and maybe what's important to your family. and how your family relationships are built. The best thing about homeschooling to me was that we learned alongside our daughters. And there were lots of things that I had studied in school. But I was a very good student, so I could read something and remember it and spout off the right answers on a test or in class. So I was a very good student, but I never really had many teachers that integrated the knowledge together. And so teaching my girls at home allowed me to find connections that just boggled my mind, but also excited me. And so I think that was the best thing about home education for us, is that we could put all of the relationships together and grow. And that was really cool. What do you think? What are some of the barriers to home education in your country now? Because now I'm assuming that people, at least most people you would talk to, have heard of home education, even if they're not, maybe they don't think they could practice it. Maybe they don't think that it's for them or that they could be involved. What are some of the barriers that keep people from participating?
That's a it's a really good question. It's a really challenging question
Yeah.
because I want to know the answer, because then you
Mm.
can speak to it.
Yes, I know, Janine. You could be a more effective missionary if you knew what people's objections were.
So I know
Yeah.
what mine were
Okay.
in the
Okay.
beginning, which were just, I was astonished that the person, because you only, so what is that saying? Comparison is the mother of clarity. And
Oh,
so I
yes.
only had my own
Yes.
experience to
Yes.
compare. So of course, when my experience, suddenly I've got rose tinted glasses on, my school life, all my friends, and I
Yes.
hear that my friend is home educating. So suddenly she's got, a crooked hat on and a wicked
Right.
smile because she's preventing her
Doing
children
something different. Yeah.
from having friends, and I think that's probably the biggest objection, would be that the one sort of, you're missing out on friends and all that socialization, and then you're missing out on a good education, because that happens at school, and surely if you're at home, all you're going to do
Mm.
is watch telly in pajamas. And also, just why would you make that decision? I think there's just a complete um, thought process that just can't comprehend it as a viable, sensible, considered
Right.
option.
Well, because for so long, for so many families, you just went to school. That's what you did. You just went to school, and you tried your best to get into the best schools. And when you did, you stayed. And even people like you who walked past schools and thought, that I wish I had that kind of education, still didn't really see it as, like you said, a viable option, because that's not what the system is. And so I mean, I think for a lot of people in the United States, um, it's still just what you do. You send your children to school. I go to work and you go to work, and we send our children to school. And so you're right. One of the barriers to home education is just changing people's mindsets. I I said for years that when I would go and speak at homeschool conferences, that the best way, I wanted folks to choose homeschooling. I wanted them to run toward something better, not away from something they hated or were afraid of. Because you'll always be afraid of something. And if you're just always running away from what you're afraid of, you're just going to keep running. But if you understand that home education will allow you to integrate your faith and your wondering, curiosity, educational life, then you are running towards something that's beautiful. If you feel like you as a parent are going to be able to impact your child's heart and mind, um, then you are running towards something amazing. Um, do
Yeah.
you think that people feel, um, people that you know, that you talk to in your country, do they feel ill-equipped to do it at home? Even the people who think, "Well, that looks really good when you do it, and it sounds great, but I could never do that." Is that something that comes up?
Yeah, I think the sounds great bit maybe. What's interesting is I think the young generation, so those that are not yet parents or are
Right.
early married, they've looked at our generation and they have said, "You've got so much wrong." And not only that, but they are so switched on because they understand the digital age and how to be connected, and I think they see education as a marketplace. So for those people, I think there's definitely an exciting, vibrant, interested attitude
Mhm.
that's different to my
Mhm.
generation. So I am excited for them. We talked a little bit earlier, you and I, about in this country you would actually look at school league tables as parents, and then make sure you move there just before. Because that will be a catchment area. The good schools have a catchment area, and you have to be within that postcode zip
Okay.
code to get accepted at the school. And so definitely people do that. And I think once you've done that, of course, that's a big investment.
Yes, I was gonna say they've invested a lot to get to that school, and then, wow, would I really give it up?
Yeah, like that's hard because that you've had that focus probably since
Right.
you got married, and
Yeah.
certainly since you knew you were having children. So that's a potential barrier. But I think if those young parents visit a classical conversations community as part of their um, smorgasbord of options, they
Yes.
would get as excited as I got when I saw the children singing the timeline and telling me how the UN was formed and learning the periodic table and hearing them chant Latin declensions and conjugations and
Yes.
all of
Yes.
those great things, not to mention the other exciting things that happen in community with the
Ye
art and the science. So my son,
yes.
when I first got this job, I said we had to go and we wanted to explain to Christian Concern, the wonderful people in our country who work so hard for the gospel. And we wanted to go and just give them an overview of classical conversations. And he said,
Right.
"Oh, so you want to? What is classical conversations? Well, when you're young, it's like a party where learning happens." And
That's
I
a
thought that is
great way to
so
put it.
true.
Yeah.
People spend hundreds of pounds on party entertainers. Well, they could
Yeah.
spend that a year and get week after week after week of fun
Yes.
learning in a community and make friends
Yeah.
at the same time, young and old.
Right.
So
Right.
so that's all part of the excitement. And we go back to the barriers. Sorry, I always go all over the place. So back to the barriers of home education in our country. Well, this is the thing. I think there's a real sense among Christians my age that we are letting the Lord down by home
Mm.
educating, because they have that image of us taking ourselves out of society, out of school. We're
Oh.
not witnessing at the school gates. We're not offering society Christ. We're keeping him to ourselves. And that's not a good thing.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Do you
I
have that
s
in your country?
there are lots of folks who say, um, "Our children should be disciples for the Lord." You know, they can be salt and light in their school. Um, and I believe that every person who loves the Lord and carries his spirit can be salt and light in all the places that they go. Um, I am not willing to sacrifice this little life that the Lord has entrusted to me to a system, an education system that's dedicated to telling my student um, that the government or that the school system knows better than their parents what they ought to be learning. And so I believe that my homeschooled children have been surrounded by the love of the Lord and surrounded by all the ways to know him better as we've explored his world and as we've studied his word together and as we've seen his hand on history. They have been equipped with the truth about who God is, and they have been able to, in the shelter of our home, go out and participate in community activities where they could shine the light of Christ and then come home and be poured into again so that their cup is filled so that they can go out and pour out grace and mercy and the love of Jesus. Um, I don't think they have to be public schooled in order to do that. And I think that as we raise up students who are able to love their neighbors well and who are able to articulate truth, we are going to be able to offer to our communities leaders who love truth and who will lead people. And that is the most loving way for Christians to impact the world that I know of.
Yeah, and you're just making me think as well that God puts children in families, and I definitely
Yes.
found it encouraging at difficult times
Yes.
on the journey of being a parent, because let's face it, it's got to be one of the hardest jobs on the planet.
Amen.
Um,
Amen.
that so, I remember a wise older sister saying to me, God, it's not an accident that you've got those children. They're meant
Right.
for you. You know how
Right.
to raise them, and so, I know that often when we're seeking to follow the Lord, we can say, well, what does Jesus say and what happens in the Bible? And I always baffled thinking, I can't think of a time when the Israelites gave their children to the Philistines to be
Exactly. To be
taught.
educated. Right. Right.
Um, and we know that a child will be like his teacher, and
Mm.
there are some great teachers out there, no question.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
the system doesn't allow you to develop that relationship with one
Mhm.
teacher, though, because it
I
swaps
know. I
them in
know.
and
You
out, in
just
and out. And yet having a relationship with your teacher is a good way to foster knowledge. And then you've got the whole thing that not only we've talked a bit about knowing God in his word and his world, there's so much mystery in having the Holy Spirit,
yeah.
in God who died on a cross for my sin, and if I confess my sin, he's faithful and just to forgive me, and I can love him with all my heart, but I can still sin
Mm.
constantly and make
Mm.
mistakes and need to go back to the cross. And so to go through life and not have those kind of conversations throughout your day is it's not it feels that how that's surely how we've got in the mess that we're in this country, where we're not
Yes.
willing to
Mhm.
speak out openly about the gospel.
Mhm.
Perhaps, I mean, I might be condemning
Mhm.
everybody unfairly there, but
Well, I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think home education does offer us the chance to equip ourselves to speak truth to our communities and to bear witness to the great love that the Lord has had for us in the ways that He has led us and that He continues to lead us. I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. If we were going to pray, we mentioned early on that one thing that we can pray for the UK in is this potential legislation that could limit the freedom that parents have to choose their children's education. Um, what's something else that homeschoolers, that CCers around the world can pray for the UK?
Oh, thank you. I think that you can pray with great, huge thanks and rejoicing because God is working in our nation. We
It's
are
awesome.
growing. We do have communities up and down the countries. We do now have great structure.
Mm,
Classical Conversations USA has been a wonderful leader for us.
mm,
You offer training, you have got platforms now so people in England and around the world can go and find an event,
right.
attend a live, we call them clinics,
Yeah.
with someone who's already been doing CC, hear all about it.
Yeah.
Um, we've got this fantastic, strong team in the UK now of mums who, like me, did CC, love CC, want other mums and dads and
To
families to be
know.
part of
Mhm.
CC. And so they are on board for helping you if you're listening and want to find out about CC. There's somebody
Yes.
ready and waiting to tell you about it in this country. And that's all thanks to Classical Conversations USA for all of the giving and serving and the writing of excellent curriculum and the faithfulness in testing it and the support that you offer and the structure and the training. We have annual training from you. So my prayer would just be that all of that continues
Mm.
and that we start to walk in the good of these ways that have been prepared for
Oh,
us to actually step out, go to a clinic, listen and hear and just join in. I My favorite way to even begin to describe it, what my life and those friends of mine that I do CC with and that other leaders in our country in Classical Conversations, we if you remember the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, there was a war on and the children had gone to stay at their uncle's house,
right.
and like children do, they made the best of it and they were playing hide and seek and they thought they were having a great time. But of course we know that Lucy found Narnia, and that's how I feel. I want to go to my
Oh,
country who's playing hide and seek, thinking it's okay. We know, we have,
everything's great.
yeah,
Mhm.
we have Christ. We do know the Lord, and I want to say yes, but there's a Narnia. There's a
That's
Narnia.
right.
You've
It's
got to
right.
come and join us because that's how it feels. It's that exciting. It's that
Oh,
magical. It's that full of energy and excitement, and the spiritual battle is real. We know that
mm,
there's a real spiritual battle, and so we need to be engaged in fighting for knowledge of God in our land because we know that the people perish for lack of knowledge in our land.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yes. Oh,
my heart is, yeah, please pray that people will come and
yes.
find Narnia and join Classical
Yes.
Conversation.
That's so inspiring, Janine. I truly do pray that families in the UK are going to hear this podcast and think, okay, I've been longing for something. I think this is it. Um, there's help. I'm gonna make the leap. I'm gonna make the leap.
That's right. There
We
is
can be
help.
praying. We can be praying for that. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing um, your story and the story of CC in the British Isles. I appreciate knowing that, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the podcast. There are lots of ideas I would like to explore more deeply with you, but our time is up. And so, thank you so much, Janine, for making time in your day for me. We'll just call it a wrap. We will thank you. I'll thank all of the listeners also for joining today. It's really a joy to walk alongside such a vibrant and curious community of lifelong learners. I'm so glad y'all are here. If today's episode has encouraged you or equipped you in any way, we would love for you to share the podcast with a friend and leave us a comment down below. And remember, the heart of classical home education is not about checking boxes. It's about cultivating wisdom and virtue and wonder with your own family and by extension, your community. So, till next time, you guys keep learning, keep loving, keep leaning in to your homeschool journey. Bye-bye.